Bank of America, Standard Chartered, and Santander. So really trying to build up a global network where they're able to move money more effectively on behalf of their customers.
Some of the work we were doing in Japan, and we now have 61 banks in Japan alone using our technologies, deploying both globally, across border, as well as domestically. And in particular, one of the third largest bank in the world by assets is a bank called MUFG. They're the parent company of Bank of Tokyo Mitsubishi. We announced them as a customer.
Visa's numbers is like the numbers to beat, 50,000 transactions per second. I think that is way, way lowballing it by many orders of magnitude. Cheap kind of home router can do something somewhere between 100,000 and 1 million packets per second. And that's just what you have at home. That's not commercial grade or anything. So when I think about packets per second, that's the way that I'm thinking about it. Payment latency and interledger, we're worried about the constraints of the speed of light. At a certain point, you can't move faster than the electrons going physically from me to you.
Going right to payment alliances, we're going to financial institutions, we're going to the Federal Reserve and central bankers. We really are trying to work this from the top down, get liquidity into the system, get cash in and cash out pathways so that it will be more useful for everyone. It's kind of surprising that we're where we are, that we're being taken seriously by central bankers, that we have banks that are using the Ripple network today to make payments between banks. Surprisingly to me, we've actually been getting an extremely positive response from everything from the Federal Reserve to small and medium-sized banks to payment consortiums. Everybody seems to recognize that the payment system is broken. We're a long way. Unfortunately, we're a long way from making these systems safe enough for mass consumer direct use.
Right.
If I had to guess, I would say the fastest would be 2 to 3 years, which is really not that long.
No.
Yeah, technology moves very, very quickly.
Like Bank of America, are they open to Ripple right now? And if they are, or when they are eventually, how can Bank of America use Ripple right now today?
They are surprisingly open. That's another one of the things that really surprised me, because you kind of think of the existing financial system as perfect for banks and banks not wanting to disrupt a system that works well for them. But actually, banks have huge problems in payments.
Это биткоин. С помощью виртуального кошелька можно мгновенно переводить деньги в любую точку земного шара. Перевод идет, минуя банки, от человека к человеку. Полная анонимность и конфиденциальность. Продавец и покупатель видят только номера счетов друг друга. Банк России видит в этом признак финансовых пирамид, жертвами которых в новейшей истории России и так уже стали более 20 миллионов человек. С главой ЦБ на эту тему президент общался неоднократно. На том, какие риски несут криптовалюты, Путин сегодня остановился подробно.
Прежде всего, это возможность отмывания капиталов, полученных преступным путем, ухода от налогов и финансирования даже терроризма. Ну и, конечно, распространение мошеннических схем, жертвами которых могут, безусловно, стать рядовые граждане. Криптовалюты выпускаются неограниченным кругом анонимных субъектов. Таким образом, покупатели криптовалют могут быть вовлечены в противоправную деятельность. Ну и кроме того, по криптовалютам не существует обеспечений. В случае сбоя системы или надувания пузырей, как сейчас модно иногда говорить, по ним не будет юридически ответственного субъекта.
Биткоин возник в 2009-м после мирового финансового кризиса и краха Уолл-стрит в 2008-м как протест на всесилие американских банков и альтернативу доллару. В такой финансовой свободе есть и плюсы. Их необходимо развивать.
Мы должны использовать преимущества, которые дают новые технологические решения в банковской сфере. При этом важно не нагородить лишних барьеров, разумеется, а создать необходимые условия для дальнейшего развития и совершенствования национальной финансовой системы.
Despite those numbers. Well, like I said, the repo market is flashing financial catastrophe. And the reason it's flashing this, and markets are discounting mechanisms. They tend to be price sensitive to events that are not necessarily seen or known until they actually happen. And what's happening is that China is getting ready to open the trap door on the US dollar. Here's what I'm hearing, Daniela. China is about to announce that they, in fact, have not just under 2,000 tons of gold, but closer to 20,000 tons of gold on a very aggressive move to put the final nail into the U.S. dollar.
What's your source for that?
As you know, we do our show that's broadcast globally, And we have a lot of contacts all over Asia and in Eurasia and naturally in Russia. And the feeling is that this is the time for China to now step out and put to rest this idea of censoring their global trade, with the U.S. censoring SWIFT and other things that they do to curtail China in other countries, because China's making their big move for the 21st century. They're going to pull the trapdoor. And let me just add that they're also, as has been reported by the media, rolling out a cryptocurrency. A lot of the details have not been divulged. I can tell you that that cryptocurrency China's rolling out will be backed by gold. It's a two-prong announcement. Number one, China's got 20,000 tons of gold. Number two, we're rolling out a crypto coin backed by gold, and the dollar is toast. The dollar's going, like every other paper money in history, to zero. And you say, where's gold going? Is it going to 5,000, to 10,000? It doesn't matter. In dollar terms, gold is going to infinity. In dollar terms, Bitcoin is going to infinity because the dollar is going to zero, like every piece of garbage fiat money before it.
Okay, wow. Okay, now I have a lot of questions. So, one,
Can we talk about Bitcoin Capital?
We will. I promise
Okay,
you'll
it's
get
up 600% in 6 years. 600% in 6 years. Bitcoin Capital 1, 2, and 3, and now we're doing Bitcoin Capital 4.
Have you been accumulating gold this whole time?
Equals higher liquidity. The fact that Ripple Labs locked up 55% of the total XRP in timed release escrow accounts and has been disciplined in relocking the unsold portions of each release will help to eventually drive the price higher. Even though institutional partners are likely buying XRP over the counter from these releases, this is not reflected in the published exchange prices. During the last 6 months, XRP's price has ranged from 25 cents all the way up to 60 cents, which represents a 120% range either side. Even though this seems like massive movement, it is not problematic for institutional use because of XRP's fast 3-second settlement times.
Big part of the value proposition of Ripple, I think, is the cryptocurrency, the XRP. There we do find that the banks are also, they are hesitant to convert things into a cryptocurrency right now because of the volatility in the currencies, because of the fact that you don't have the deep liquidity that you have in, for example, the dollar.
I hear people talk about volatility, and I feel like they're propagating misinformation. The volatility risk of fiat, volatility is just a mathematical calculation of time times volatility. If you hold fiat for, let's say, an average SWIFT transaction today is in the order of magnitude 2 days, that's about 180,000 seconds. An XRP transaction is 3 seconds. So if you take a low volatile asset times a long duration, fiat, or a high volatility asset versus a very, very short amount of time, it turns out mathematically there's less volatility risk in an XRP transaction than there is in a fiat transaction. The difference is you have market makers. When you do a SWIFT transaction, there's banks saying, there's a market maker saying, I'll lock in that rate. I'll take the volatility risk for the next 2 or 3 days. With XRP, you don't have to do that because it settles so quickly.
What is problematic, however, is that this price movement was driven by relatively small retail investments. To move value on the scale of SWIFT's $5 trillion of daily transactions requires much more liquidity than is available in today's XRP pool. If 45 billion XRP are available, this would require a price of approximately $111 per XRP.
Digital currencies. They are perhaps not the first thing you think about when you consider the global impact of COVID-19. But while we don't think the coronavirus alone will be enough to a central bank digital currency going, here are 3 reasons why the introduction of a digital dollar, a digital euro, or a digital pound may be speeded up by this crisis. First, contactless payments. The rise of contactless payments could help to cut out contagion risk. This argument could convince even those who still think that cash is king. Second, easier political mandate. We see a bigger role for governments in the economy. This could make it easier for central banks to introduce a central bank digital currency. Third, geopolitics. Some countries could come out of this downturn in a much better shape than others. This could give them a clear opportunity to flex their muscles, especially in the digital payments market. Finally, one comment on Libra. Facebook's plans for its Libra digital currency were recently updated. They argued that if central banks were to create their own digital currencies, they could integrate them with the Libra network. This sounds like an offer that central banks could not refuse. Yet, we doubt they will take it up immediately. The original multi-currency Libra coin is not off the table yet. For this reason, central banks will probably continue to look at the Libra platform with suspicion. Today, public authorities are still in crisis-fighting mode, but looking at history, we do know that the foundations of a post-crisis world are laid out in crisis times. Expect the talk to ramp up to more action, perhaps sooner than you think.
This is the beginning of the greatest economic cycle this country has had since World War II. And I knew the things that Donald would do, and he hasn't even got started. But this is the eye of the motherfucking storm, the perfect storm. It ain't never going to get any better. Never. This is perfect for the QLA model. If I could have written a prescription or a formula, I couldn't have written it any better. Low interest rates, money's free, you stupid. Massive chaos. And Donald's going to rip the mother economy apart. And he's going to for practice in a good way. This is it. It ain't never going to get anything better. This is like a multiple orgasm the rest of your life, you fucking slags that are in the audience. This is it.
Sometimes I don't want to hear what Dan has to tell me. But as I wrote in one of my blogs, the old man, he's always right. Because he's telling you what you don't want to hear about yourself, but what you know is true. And that is, you're not stepping yourself up. You're not stepping your game up. And you get caught up in fear. As Dan says, false expectations appearing real.